Inquiry into state capture will resume in Parktown, north of Johannesburg, tomorrow. The Commission will not hear any oral evidence, but will be dealing with an application of a procedural nature, and that's related to some of the evidence that will be heard in the days to come. And the Commission was set up amid loud cries of alleged systemic corruption and the private interests, mainly of the Gupta family, who are alleged to have had a significant influence in the decision-making of state processes. And some of the people who have taken to the stand so far include Barbara Hogan, Cheryl Carolus, Ngwako Ramalhodi, Mzwanele Manyi, Phumla Williams, and Vytjie Mentoor, amongst others. And we join now by Dr. Dale T. McKinley of the Right2Know Campaign. Thanks so much for coming through, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Sakina, you too, and to the listeners.
So, firstly, that commission was supposed to resume today. Yesterday, we got a message that, in fact, it will resume tomorrow. But given what we've seen thus far and what we've heard, what have you made? What has your assessment been of this commission?
Well, I think, first of all, it's been a bit of some fresh air. I mean, we've needed this, some airing of a lot of the things that have been on our minds and we've read in the newspapers for the last several years. However, I think it's just the beginning. The terms of reference have now been changed to make it a lot longer. And I think when we're talking about state capture, we're not just talking about the Gupta family. So far, we've heard really from the ministers and those involved in Treasury and so forth. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see the extent to which the Commission broadens its mandate and looks at a range of other possible, examples of state capture, not just at the Treasury level and national, but at provincial, local level, other corporations, private sector relationships. These kinds of things, I think, would make it, much more useful than just a very narrow perspective on a relationship with one family and its relationship with particular ministers and the ex-president.
But from the evidence that we've heard thus far, have we learned anything that we didn't know previously?
Well, there hasn't been any really bombshell, I think, things. I think everybody was like, wow, there was some cash offered, to whether it was in SABC Jonas or other people. But I think in general, we figured that this is probably what was going on. I think it's still to come. I think the real, things that would be interesting to us of people we might not know that were involved, monies that were exchanged. I just recently, Radovan Kretcher has made an affidavit about giving a bribe of 2.5 million directly to the president's son or the ex-president, and that might come before the commission. So that could be a real bombshell allegation. Or so far, not really a great deal that we might not have expected, but I think it's, as I said, it's just the start. So this is going to go on for quite some time.
Now, if these problems are systemic in nature, and you spoke about the terms of reference of this commission and how that's being broadened, we could be here for quite a while, couldn't we?
We could, and there's a lot to tell, unfortunately. I think that, I just saw recently that for example, BLF has been invited to testify in February about corruption allegations against Pravin Gordhan and Nhlanhla Nene. So we're going to have, I think you're going to see a lot of politics playing itself out here. We're leading up to elections as well. So a lot of political parties are going to want to be on this stage. Let's not kid ourselves. This is performance politics as well. This provides an opportunity for people to have their say, to be in the limelight. So in this case, I think South Africans love a show in this sense. So the Commission provides that, but it's going to be very, very important that what happens with the information that's gotten. So we haven't even talked about that. So this could just turn out to be like many other commissions. Very, very interesting for us. We're all surprised, but then nothing happens. Nobody has to take any responsibility. So I think that's where really the crunch is going to come, is what's going to happen with all this information that's going to be given to the Commission.
So given what's happened with previous commissions, as you point out, how do we mitigate against this just being this show and nothing happens beyond it?
Well, I think the main thing is what happened previously with a lot of the commissions. We look at the Sariti Commission, for example, is that a commission is no good when it comes up with particular allegations and saying that people should be criminally responsible, but our prosecutorial authorities and our law enforcement is not up to scratch and itself has been captured. Then we're not going to have the follow-on that we need. So what we need now is we need the Hawks, we need the police, the SAPs, the investigative units, the intelligence services. We need them all to be cleaned out. We need those to be properly uncaptured, and so that they can do the job, so that when the commission says so-and-so has a case to answer, they can follow that, and they'll do so without political fear or favor. That's going to be the difference in this commission, if it does happen, from past ones, where the commission is followed by action and people having to take responsibility. I think that's when South Africans will say, now something is happening.
And that's a very interesting assertion, because when you say these institutions need to be uncaptured, and then what? Do they become recaptured? Because we can go back to the TRC, for example, and we know that there were clear recommendations there. There were files that were sent over to the prosecutorial authority that have just sat there. Nothing has happened. Does that speak to capture in some way or form?
Well, I certainly think it speaks to a great deal of political interference and bias, which one could say is a form of capture. Yes, when I say uncapturing, I mean we need to take back the public service for the public. Unfortunately, what the intelligence services, the law enforcement agencies have been used for factional purposes, to settle scores, whether that's within the ruling party, whether that's within government, and to basically pursue particular political or ideological agendas. And I think it's across the board. Look at our state-owned enterprises and the state that they're in. You're just talking about Eskom this morning, and it's in a real crisis. When we say uncapturing it, we mean taking it back for the people so that it serves the people and does the job that it's supposed to do. So I think that's a long-term, this is not going to happen overnight. But I think the test of the Ramaphosa administration and the test of this new government is going to be to the degree to which they can do that across the board, where they can say to South Africans, we're making progress, we're making these state-owned enterprises, the Hawks and everything serve you, and we're going to take them out of our hands. That's a difficult question. That's a difficult task, but I think it's one that is possible.
Absolutely. And if just the evidence that we've heard thus far, if that is anything to go by, it speaks to how deep the rot is. And if it is, as some would point out, even deeper, if some people are saying to us, well, this is just the tip of the iceberg, then, what is a realistic sort of time frame for us to expect to see any real change?
Well, I think the terms of reference now have extended, I think, for 18 months at least. So this could go on for another year and a half. And so it's not going to be any time, I think, within the next 4 or 5 years. Hopefully we'll begin to see prosecutions, we'll begin to see people take that responsibility. But I think that the larger question would be, are we seeing real change within the institutions themselves? People will know if the police are doing their jobs. People will know if the Hawks are doing their jobs. Look at the IPID investigations now that are coming forward. So let's see if the politics, if the action can follow the politics, if we can get beyond the rhetoric, get beyond the performance, and get actually down to brass tacks, which is making people take responsibility for what they've done. I think that will bring back a great deal of confidence in the government.
Now, looking at the people who've testified and those who we still expect to testify, who would you like to see? Who would you like to hear from at this stage?
Well, I think the one, there's many. Let's, for example, say the police. We haven't seen any of the top brass of the police testifying. They've got a lot to answer for. And intelligence services, those who are responsible for intelligence. We see their names being mentioned, but we haven't seen them too. I certainly would like to see them on the stand, because intelligence and the police have been involved in a lot of these, at least allegations of state capture and protecting politicians and relationships. But I'd also like to see a lot of heads of corporations that have had very close relations and have done a great deal of business with the state. I see Glencore has said, yes, we're willing to testify. Well, come, let's hear and let the questions be asked, because we need across-the-board investigation. Nobody should be left untouched in this investigation, and I think that there are some that are sort of hiding in the shadows and hoping they don't get called.
Like who?
Well, like some CEOs potentially, or some, for example, other ministers. Let's say, for example, from the South African Communist Party or COSATU. We haven't even seen those ministers and those politicians who themselves were behind the Zuma project from the beginning, but have now claimed that they're against it. So you can't have it both ways. They need to also answer what was their role in those early days.
Let's be transparent.
Absolutely.
Who exactly?
Well, let's have, for example, let's have Dr. Blade Nzimande, the Minister of Higher Education, the General Secretary of the Communist Party. Comrade Blade has said many things about state capture and has said the party, and yet the party was the supporter for many, many years of the Zuma administration. So again, maybe he should come. We should possibly hear from many other ministers that are not necessarily in the spotlight. So ones that were involved with other state-owned enterprises as well, CEOs of those enterprises, CEOs of certain corporations, the Oppenheimers. I know the BLF wants to investigate them. Let it happen. It's fine. We should have nothing to hide in this investigation, and we should, and the terms of reference should be extended as wide as possible.
And of course, there will be opportunity for people to apply to cross-examine some of the witnesses that do appear before this commission. And some are saying that's where the real fireworks are going to happen.
Well, absolutely. If you've been accused, you have you can have the opportunity to question your accuser and to present your case. Let this happen. I mean, again, people can have it both. So, for example, ex-President Zuma has not yet testified himself and has not yet given made his case. We would like to hear how is he responding to these very specific allegations about himself and his son and his family and their relationships with the Gupta families. If he remains silent, then we're never only going to get half that story. So let those who are accused and let them come forward and tell their story. Yeah.
As far as I know, President Zuma hasn't applied to cross-examine anybody either. So, listening to the evidence that has gone before the commission already, what exactly should President Zuma be answering to right now?
Well, I think he should be answering to a range of different things. For example, was he facilitating of those meetings with the Gupta? Was he the one that made the phone calls to put pressure onto the finance minister and to the head of the treasury to cut the nuclear deal? Was he the one that facilitated state security and intelligence to interfere and to intimidate, giving the orders like a mafia don? So that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think there is much, much more to come. And the president, again, he can't have it both ways. If he wants transparency, and he always said, I want my day in court. Well, this is not a court, but it's the court of public opinion. Come into the court of public opinion, tell your story, and let's judge according to what is being said.
Mzwanele Manyi, he appeared before the commission and he says, well, he's the only one who gave any real meaningful evidence before this particular commission. The others were just choristers singing in the choir.
Well, unfortunately, Mzwanele Manyi oftentimes seems to think that he's the only one in the room and the only one speaking. But I think there are many more that might come. The BLF says they've got affidavits that show that Pravin Gordhan and Nhlanhla Nene are involved in corruption. Well, put it on the table and let's see if that's, if it's fake news or if it's real, and let it be investigated. If there's others that say, well, what about, for example, those that are making accusations against us? What about their involvement? Put that information on the table. So again, I think we need to get beyond the rhetoric. Let's get beyond the labeling and accusations. Let's put the empirical evidence and the facts, and let not only the investigators, but let the public judge as well. Because that's, I think, what is really important about this commission, and it's the airing of these things within the public, and the public being able then to see for themselves and act accordingly, both politically in the upcoming elections, but also going forward and putting pressure on the government to make sure that they act on these things.
But we see, of course, how a state-owned enterprises in particular have been affected adversely and really badly so for the most part. Absolutely. By this particular state capture project. And you look at Eskom, they before NERSA at the moment asking for a 45% increase, that's 15% over the next 3 years. You look at Eskom, you look at Denel, you look at the SABC, you look at all of these state-owned enterprises and the state they find themselves in. How is this commission going to help recapture, or reclaim the glory that these institutions may have been at one stage or another?
Well, if people are looking for the commission to be the be-all and end-all and answer, I think they're looking in the wrong direction. I think what the role of the commissioner should be is to basically say, these are the things that, if we don't talk, it's just like in a relationship. If you don't talk about your relationship and about the problems, you're never going to be able to solve them. So at least let's air those things. Let's hear them out. And as a result of that, then what can be identified are those people that need to be taken to court, those people that need to be charged. So the possibility of the contribution is a little bit of a clean out, possibly, from the information that is gathered that can result in criminal prosecutions, but also as we talk about these things as a country and as we engage and debate and argue, what I think the possibility of the contribution is contributing to the recapturing of those state-owned enterprises as public institutions, taking them out of the hands of greedy individuals and those that want to use them for their own purposes. And that's a long-term reclamation project. But the Commission, I think, is a good start for this. And so it's not going to be the silver bullet, but it's certainly going to be a major contributor, I would hope.
And just a final question. As far as law enforcement authorities go, and as we said, a lot of this information isn't new that we are hearing at this commission. If the evidence is there, if these allegations are being made, do the law enforcement authorities have to wait for the conclusion of this commission before they act?
I'm not a lawyer, but I would not think so. I would say if there's enough evidence, if you have a docket and you have prima facie evidence, then you should act. One of the problems right from the beginning of this whole state capture saga was that the law enforcement agencies had evidence and they didn't act on that evidence because they were politically pressured or to drop these things. So let's not have that again. Let's not say, oh, we're going to wait till it's over. Oh, it's sub judice. It's whatever it is. This is not a court. This is a court of public opinion. So if the hawks have the information, let them act. Let people see that things are being done. I think once that's, then when Cyril Ramaphosa talks, when the ministers say, we're trying to do something, we're trying to get beyond this, when the Commission says we're there for you, then people will believe that much more so than now, and they think, well, maybe this is a waste of time and money.
Well, Dane McKinley, always good to speak to you. Thank you so much, Dr. Dale T. McKinley from the Right to Know campaign. And of course, the Commission into State Capture resumes its work tomorrow. Let's take a break.